No questions that are off limits. We just want to kind of discuss why we're here. And I introduce myself. My name's Patrick Lacey. I have an 8-year-old son with neuroblastoma. And for the past 5 years, he's been under Dr. Scholar's care, and we've been benefiting from the trials of the NMTRC and the collaboration. And so what I wanted to talk about was just briefly what the consortium means. It's a word we use a lot, but what are the kind of the barriers around it? What are the costs, and how is it being paid for? These are all things that, from my own perspective, before I started, just to kind of follow up with the politics statement at the end of the earlier session, how that gets in the way, and I had to bite my tongue that kind of irritates me, because what the hell is he saying? We are all here because we want to see kids survive. I don't want to hear more excuses. I don't want to hear more BS about politics. That's not what we're here for. This group, in this room in particular, is filled with people who don't let that stuff get in the way. This consortium is based on doctors and researchers who are collaborating across institutions, who are making a difference, and who are putting survival of these kids first, not their own careers, not publishing papers, not getting that next grant. Their goal is focused on survival and the next trial and the next trial and the next trial, and doing everything they can for the kids. And that's what this is all about. That's why we're here. And we can always focus on the barriers and what's going wrong, or we can kind of push forward. The doctors aren't going to promote this. They're not going to share this information. They can't. They don't want to. They're not going to say it. They're afraid to refer patients. They need to have certain enrollment numbers at their institutions. And if they're pushing every client away to another referring center, that impacts their ability to keep their funding for their job and for their lab. They're not going to do it. Okay? It's going to be incumbent on us to share this information with other families and to do the best we can to let other people know what options there are. Not to tell them what to do, but just let them know what options are for them to consider. And that's something that's on us as a family, as foundations, as people who are concerned about these kids and these trials, to get that information out. So I'll start here. Again, my son currently has neuroblastoma that isn't being treated since January. We're very excited about that. It's the first time in 8 years he's ever been off therapy, so it's an important milestone that we're fortunate to reach through the support of organizations here that help these doctors open these studies. And just to talk about how that works. So consortium, group of people with a common goal. The NMTRC has that common goal of opening trials and helping these kids with cancer, and that's what we're here today for. So there's single institutions that raise extraordinary amounts of money. You all know which ones they are. Maybe a local institution. You'll see their pictures of children with cute smiling bald faces, and that's part of the campaign of a hospital fundraising organization. But where does that money go? It goes to a single institution. Why do we need a consortium? 650 kids a year across this country. Nearly half the population lives in the Eastern Time Zone in this country. So to go to a single institution, wherever that may be, travel costs are high. There might be one trial open halfway across the country. You go there for that one option, and it does or doesn't work. That's it. So it's an uncertain outcome. You have all these commitments, financial, spiritual, your own family support groups at your home institution that help you get through all your commitments. And you're going to say, I'm going to travel halfway across the country to this one institution that has one study open. So the needs for a consortium are important because you want to have at least a regional site that you can get access to. Perhaps it's not the most convenient place. At first, when Dr. Scholar was in Vermont, there's families here that traveled long distances to get there to see that one doctor, that one trial. But having these sites across the country make it a little easier to regionally travel to these sites. The goal is having patients get treatment and not having to travel to it, to kind of bring the treatment to them in their region of the country. So from this consortium's goals and what they're trying to do, obviously they have multiple treatment options. It's not one study that you go and it's all or nothing. The goal being low toxicity in terms of quality of life, not because that's the main goal, but because you want to treat the disease and have the treatment not be worse than the side effects they're experiencing from their tumors. More importantly, if one study doesn't work for your child, you can go on to the next one without some sort of complication or side effect or immunosuppression that's causing you to be unable to enroll in that next study. bring that treatment to them, give them options today, and give as many options as they can to kind of spin through different treatments so they find the one that hopefully will keep their disease at bay. So that's the consortium, is what is the model that brings that, through this slide that I stole from Dr. Scholler. It brings treatments to people all across the country. You get collaboration across institutions. So from the consortium perspective, we all talk about it, but how does it work financially? Lab research is performed. They write the trials. They all work together. The trials then open up at member sites. Hopefully patients enroll at their closest institution. The NMTRC staff has to collect that data, has to monitor that data. More data leads to more studies, more patients hopefully, and member sites see and treat these patients in their region. So that local institution has to have their clinicians and nurses who already had a patient load take on new patients. They're working on these trials. They're working on molecular tumor board calls. The doctors want to join, but the hospitals also have costs they want to cover. So the time for these studies at each of these sites across the country needs to be paid for somehow. And that's where bringing the treatment to the patients becomes an expensive proposition, because each of those institutions needs compensation to see those patients at their location. So you have, clinics with large patient load, costs are being covered. So what are the annual costs? What kind of numbers are we looking at in order to have this consortium function? And you can see here, each patient enrolled is $2,000 that needs to be sent to that site every time they enroll a new patient. So any patient that enrolls anywhere in the country, as soon as that enrollment happens, that central NMTRC fund then transfers that money out to that institution. Every time they open a new study and gets IRB approval at their local institution, that's a $5,000 fee that gets sent out. So your local hospital may have a doctor or a researcher that's working with a member of the consortium, but there's only one location that money comes from, and that's why that consortium fund is what funds the clinical trials, the costs, the research. So when you look at what the total cost to run the program is in a given year, you have about $350,000 kind of on the administration side. If you're enrolling all these studies and sites, you might have $150,000 in IRB fees. You might have another $200,000-$300,000 in patient fees, per patient fees, if enrollment's going well. So you're talking about $700,000-$800,000 just in those administrative costs before you get into all the other infrastructure costs, all the other expenses for trials. One trial in particular right now, the NMTRC fund is paying for a drug, but the drug is not being supplied by the pharmaceutical company. So you have all these other costs on top of that. So the baseline is $800,000 that's coming out of this account. So all that money comes from the NMTRC fund, which is housed in Grand Rapids. That fund has, as we mentioned, the administrative costs for the NMTRC. It also has the trial costs. It also has the lab costs. So currently all of the studies that have opened have all come from research and collaboration, but that work's being done in Dr. Scholler's lab. But that fund is broken into, obviously, lab costs and trial costs, and those are kind of two different things. So you have infrastructure here. On the right side of the screen, you have the therapeutics clinic at Grand Rapids, which is kind of the same model that all these sites have. They have their care team that's seeing the patients, treating them, taking care of them. Then you have the NMTRC costs with site coordinators, clinical program directors. Ellie, who's here in the room with us, does great things. And then you have all the sites. So all this costs money. It costs a lot of money, and it's all coming from that one fund. Okay, so that's where that's where I and our foundation and a lot of other foundations here. I still haven't had a chance to meet everyone in the room. We fund that, and it's a difficult sell at times. When I live in Boston, and people ask, where are you putting your money? Or where's this foundation going? And you explain the reason, you explain the cause. Then you tell them you're sending this money to Grand Rapids, Michigan. And they kind of look at you strangely, like they want to hear about their local hospital. They want to hear about Children's in Boston or Dana-Farber. And you explain, no, this is really groundbreaking stuff. This is important. It's helping kids everywhere. The numbers just don't pan out. You can't have one institution in one corner of the country responsible for getting every single patient there. It logistically doesn't work. So why do we choose to support the NMTRC? Why do we help fund these trials that, as I said, it's a difficult thing to explain to a local donor that you're sending their money out of state? It delivers many options to kids. As I mentioned, it has that targeted approach on drug that does not punish their immune system in such a manner they can't enroll in the next study. And for our own personal experience, our donors, we can tell them we put their dollars immediately to work. And that's an important thing for me when I'm telling people, well, yes, it's going out of state, but last March we had a fundraiser. We sent the money out to the study immediately. In June, that study opened. And then this year at our event, we had pictures and stories of kids that had benefited in the interim. Say, look, this is a child, last year you came, you had fun, this is what happened. This child here benefited from that treatment option. So that, for us, and before we started funding this work, we were funding other research, and we threw a lot of money at bad projects. We threw a lot of money at good storytellers with no delivery. We gave $100,000 to one gentleman who really told us and did all this wonderful, incredible research. This is for a different foundation that we'd worked with previously. And if we'd put that same money in a hot air balloon and release it to the sky and just said neuroblastoma research on it, it'd have done more good. This person was going around to different foundations and getting more and more money and doing absolutely nothing with it. And so being able to see and take those dollars and literally 3 months later see kids enrolling in these studies, see kids doing well, is a very important part of this that's different from any other consortium. It's different than any other research area because the leadership of this consortium understands and treats these patients like we would if we could become oncologists ourselves. They see the need, they want to help today, and that partnership is really helping to do some pretty amazing things. And by amazing things, the goal is enrollment. You need to enroll kids, and kids are enrolling. Enrollment truly is everything. And Kyle told me he had 28 slides in his presentation in an effort to beat him. I've put up a bunch of ridiculous slides so I could hopefully get there. 11. So, since 2008, and here are the numbers that kind of dictate to me personally, they resonate with me strongly about how incredible this consortium is and how much has been done in a short period of time. So since 2008, 11 studies have been approved. That's pretty amazing. There's another neuroblastoma consortium that called the NANT. They have a lot of studies in the past that have helped kids, and I'm not trying to say one's better than the other. At same time horizon, NANT has had 9 studies opened. And they've been around since the late 90s. They have a lot of infrastructure grants from the NCI. They have a lot of other funding that gives them a lot more financial resources, whereas this consortium is based on family foundations of children with or have lost their battle to cancer. So the people in this room have not only made a commitment to help, but they've truly made a difference. The people in this room have given money that's allowed this consortium to do what it wants to do. Give the doctors their money and let them just get out of their way. Let them do their thing, because this group is focused on that. And literally the parents in this room have helped them open 11 studies with their own funding, and that's incredible. Since January of 2012, 156 kids have enrolled in studies. 102 in 2012, 54 so far this year in the first 4 months. So you look at that uptick in numbers. You're on pace for 162 patients in 2013 alone. 162 kids. That's incredible. And why is that incredible? I have another slide here, Kyle. 9.75 average number of patients enrolling per month. So you're almost 10 kids a month we're talking about here across the country. They're enrolling in these studies funded by parent foundations. Is a staggering statistic because, as we all know, we've heard the statistics, and you hear 600, you hear 700, you hear 650, but I'll just call it 650 kids a year. The entire country diagnosed with neuroblastoma, 54 kids every month. We're talking about 10 kids enrolling in relapse studies funded by parents. And that's just 15 members. Not all 15 sites open these studies. Okay, that's a different conversation altogether. There's 15 locations that want to help. Not all of them can. Not all of them are able to open a study. They might only be a phase 1 with 15 kids. It doesn't make sense to have it open in 15 locations. But the limited number of sites has done incredible things in a short period of time. And with more support, I truly believe we can continue to allow them to do their work, and these enrollment numbers will eventually lead to more infrastructure grants from other organizations besides families who've been faced with this disease. The 17 clinicians involved, and the final slide I added this for you is one common goal. They're all in it to save kids with cancer. There are politics involved, there are barriers, there are obstacles. We come to this meeting once a year, and all the parents come up and speak, because you can't have people talking about the roadblocks. You can't have a gentleman ending the day's conversation with, there are politics involved. There's one goal. We all need to keep focused on it. You all need to keep reminding everyone why we're here, and stop looking down at the barriers and look at what our common goal is. And I'm incredibly proud to be associated with the people in this room who have made that commitment and have done such extraordinary things in a short period of time, either in honor of or to help other kids. They don't have to face the challenges that and loss that many of us have faced ourselves. That's my last slide. Kyle will beat me in slide total. Unfortunately, I couldn't get my PowerPoint to add any more. So it's hard for me to really grasp these numbers. The 156 kids in that short period of time it's amazing, and all these people are getting the options to try these incredible studies. And I'm just so happy to see that it's trending in that direction, and hopefully with more numbers like this, it'll be hard for anyone to turn down grants that these wonderful physicians have been trying to get to help take the burden off the families. But in the meantime, we'll all continue to do our best. So. Yes. The problem you have with foundation money, and no one likes at a hospital foundation money. They like it, but they prefer to have a grant that's coming over 5 years with guaranteed funding, with the hope of renewing that at the end of that time frame. So we ran into this problem at other hospitals in the past when we were when the NMTRC first started in Vermont, where all that money was coming from families, and it was a challenge, and to make sure that all the dollars are coming in to keep the lights on. To keep the lab stocked, to keep people employed so they can do the work that needs to be done. So moving to Grand Rapids, and there's some gentlemen here in the front row from Helen DeVos Children's Hospital, which is where the NMTRC fund is housed. They take care of the holding that money and making sure that it goes to the right place. They worked with parent foundations to craft the language for that fund, so that we all know where every dollar goes and what it's for. It's strictly for these kids. It's strictly for relapsed neuroblastoma research. It's strictly under the guidance and input of Dr. Scholl and what her needs are for the consortium. And they've been very supportive of that work, and it's a big commitment, because you can't just take on a consortium and say, we'll just hold this money here. There's insurance issues, there's legal issues. And so it's great to have a wonderful partner like the hospital in Grand Rapids that is supportive, and hopefully will alleviate those issues with money running out. But yeah, the goal has always been to keep as many dollars flowing in as possible so that you can keep the trials opening. And hopefully the enrollment numbers just speak for themselves, and hopefully that will lead to, but we don't have time. You don't want to wait around 6 years or 5 months, so you don't want to file for that next grant and hope that in the next grant cycle it comes out. There's kids today that need these treatment options, and doing what you can in the meantime to fill that gap is kind of the goal and the hope, and what's been great about meeting people who share that passion to do what they can.